Something about ZaKiyah Johnson's announcement feels bigger than people realize. And I'm telling you right now, this is not just another recruiting headline. Because the second this news dropped, people connected to women's basketball started reacting differently. Not loud, not dramatic, almost cautious, like they understood what this could mean before the internet caught on. That's when I knew this story had another layer to it. See, LSU doesn't recruit players anymore. They recruit pressure. That logo now comes with national attention, non-stop expectations, nil money, WNBA comparisons, social media wars, all before players even step onto the court. And now ZaKiyah Johnson is walking directly into that spotlight at a moment when LSU feels more unstable than people want to admit publicly. That's the uncomfortable truth. Because while fans are celebrating the announcement, some insiders are quietly asking a completely different question. Why does it feel like LSU keeps getting bigger, while the energy around the program keeps getting heavier? And trust me, people around the sport are noticing it too. The reactions, the timing, the pressure surrounding every move. This doesn't feel like a normal commitment anymore. It feels like LSU is trying to prove something, and if this move doesn't immediately work, the conversation around Kim Mulkey and the future of LSU basketball is about to become absolutely insane. What makes this entire ZaKiyah Johnson situation feel so different is the timing. Because if this announcement happened 2 years ago, fans probably would have celebrated it and moved on within 24 hours. Big recruit, big future, big excitement. End of story. But LSU is no longer operating in that kind of environment anymore. Now every single move connected to this program feels loaded with pressure before the season even starts. And that's exactly why people around women's basketball reacted so intensely the moment ZaKiyah Johnson's name started trending. Not because they doubt her talent. Actually, it's the opposite. The expectations around her are becoming almost dangerous already. And that's where this story starts getting uncomfortable. Because ZaKiyah Johnson isn't walking into a normal college basketball situation. She's stepping into one of the loudest, most emotionally charged environments in sports right now. LSU basketball doesn't feel like a program anymore. It feels like a non-stop national conversation. Every player gets analyzed daily. Every emotional reaction becomes social media content. Every game turns into a debate about culture, leadership, pressure, or drama. That's a massive amount to throw onto young athletes before they've even fully settled into college basketball. And honestly, some insiders are worried about exactly that. Not publicly, of course. Nobody wants to become the villain online for criticizing LSU or Kim Mulkey. But if you listen carefully to the way analysts discuss the program now, there's a different tone compared to the championship season. The excitement sounds more cautious, more calculated, almost like people are waiting to see whether LSU can actually handle the weight of its own spotlight long term. That's why ZaKiyah Johnson's arrival suddenly feels bigger than recruiting. People see her as a test of whether LSU can still develop elite talent, while carrying this level of attention and emotional pressure around the program every single day. And fair or unfair, that pressure now lands directly on Kim Mulkey too. Because once a coach builds a national powerhouse, expectations stop being reasonable. Fans don't just want wins anymore. They want dominance. They want instant chemistry. They want every five-star player to become a superstar immediately. Anything less starts creating questions. And LSU has reached the point where those questions are getting louder fast. Especially after all the recent drama surrounding the program. That's why some people believe ZaKiyah Johnson's decision was not just about basketball opportunity. They think it was also about trust. Trust in Mulkey. Trust in the LSU brand. Trust that the chaos surrounding the program externally is not actually destroying things internally. But here's the thing nobody can fully answer yet. What if the chaos is affecting the program more than people realize? Because even though LSU continues attracting elite talent, the emotional energy around the team still feels strange lately. Heavy, almost tense. Like everybody connected to the program understands the pressure, but nobody wants to openly acknowledge how intense it's becoming. And honestly, young players notice that stuff immediately. Athletes pay attention to body language, locker room energy, public criticism, fan reactions online. They see all of it whether coaches want them to or not. That's what makes modern college sports so difficult now. Players are no longer developing quietly, they're developing publicly. Every mistake becomes viral content. Every emotional moment becomes national conversation. And for a player like ZaKiyah Johnson, the spotlight will arrive instantly because people already expect greatness before she's even fully entered the system. That kind of pressure can either create stars or completely overwhelm people mentally. And maybe that's why reactions to this announcement feel so divided online right now. Some fans see hope, others see desperation, because there's another side to this story nobody wants to discuss directly. Some critics believe LSU keeps making massive headline moves because the program understands the pressure surrounding its image right now. Winning another championship would silence everything instantly. The criticism, the culture questions, the non-stop drama conversations. All of it disappears with winning. That creates urgency. And urgency changes the way programs operate. Suddenly every recruit feels bigger. Every commitment feels emotional. Every roster move starts looking like proof that the dynasty is either surviving or slowly cracking apart underneath the pressure. That's why ZaKiyah Johnson's announcement exploded the way it did. People are not just reacting to one player. They're reacting to what LSU represents now. The future of the program, the pressure surrounding Kim Mulkey, the nonstop debate about whether LSU is still building something unstoppable or trying to hold together an identity that's becoming harder to manage every single season. And honestly, the scariest thing for everybody involved is that nobody truly knows which answer is correct yet. And maybe that uncertainty is exactly what makes this entire situation feel so intense right now. Because normally when a superstar recruit commits somewhere, the conversation stays simple. Fans celebrate. Analysts praise the fit. Media posts highlights. Everybody moves on. But with LSU, nothing feels simple anymore. Every move connected to this program instantly turns into a national debate about pressure, culture, expectations, and whether Kim Mulkey still fully controls the energy around the team. That's why ZaKiyah Johnson's announcement created such a massive reaction online. People were not only reacting to her talent, they were reacting to what her decision could mean for the future of LSU itself. And trust me, there are people around women's basketball quietly watching this very closely. Because if ZaKiyah thrives at LSU, the entire narrative changes overnight. Suddenly the criticism disappears. The culture questions disappear. The too much drama conversations disappear. LSU looks powerful again, dangerous again, untouchable again. But if things become chaotic, then every concern people whispered about over the last year suddenly gets amplified 10 times louder. That's how fragile sports narratives really are. And honestly, you can already feel the emotional weight surrounding this team before the season has even started. Fans are excited, but underneath that excitement there's nervous energy too. You can hear it in conversations online. LSU supporters keep defending the program before anybody even attacks it. That usually means pressure is already building internally around expectations. Confident programs don't constantly explain themselves. They just win. And maybe that's why people are paying so much attention to body language and reactions surrounding LSU lately. Every interview gets dissected. Every social media post becomes a storyline. Every player interaction becomes evidence for whatever narrative fans already believe. That environment can become exhausting fast, especially for younger athletes. Because ZaKiyah Johnson is entering college basketball at a time when elite recruits no longer get space to grow privately. Everything happens publicly now. One rough game becomes national conversation. One emotional reaction becomes viral content. One rumor spreads across social media within minutes, whether it's true or not. That pressure follows players everywhere now. And LSU might be carrying more of that pressure than any program in women's basketball. Which is exactly why some analysts believe this commitment feels bigger than basketball itself. Feels symbolic. A statement that elite players still believe in Kim Mulkey, despite all the recent criticism surrounding the program. A statement that LSU still has the power to attract future stars, even while the sports world keeps questioning the emotional stability of the culture around the team. But here's the problem. Symbolic moves create symbolic pressure. Now everybody expects ZaKiyah Johnson to become a superstar immediately, because her arrival already feels tied to the future reputation of the program. That's a massive burden for any young athlete to carry before stepping onto the court for a single major game. And whether fans realize it or not, those expectations can completely change how players experience college sports mentally. Every mistake starts feeling larger. Every criticism feels personal. Every social media reaction becomes impossible to ignore. That emotional pressure can slowly drain confidence from even the most talented athletes if the environment around them becomes too intense. And some people genuinely wonder if LSU is approaching that line now, because this program became bigger than basketball very quickly. LSU transformed into entertainment, controversy, celebrity culture, and national debate all at the same time. That level of visibility brings opportunities, but it also creates nonstop emotional noise surrounding the team every single day. Not every locker room can survive that long term. That's why some insiders keep describing LSU with words like volatile lately. Not unstable in terms of talent, volatile emotionally, meaning everything surrounding the program feels amplified. The highs become massive, the lows become chaotic. There's almost no middle ground anymore. And that can wear people down internally over time, even coaches. Because while Kim Mulkey still projects confidence publicly, the pressure around her has clearly changed compared to the championship season. Back then, she controlled the narrative completely through winning. Now every decision feels scrutinized differently. People are no longer simply admiring the success. They're analyzing the culture underneath the success. That's a very different level of pressure to coach under, especially in today's social media environment where every emotional sideline reaction instantly becomes content online. And honestly, ZaKiyah Johnson may end up stepping into one of the most psychologically demanding situations in college basketball right now without fully realizing it yet. Not because LSU lacks talent, not because the coaching is weak, because the expectations surrounding the program have become enormous. This is no longer just about building a great team. Now it feels like LSU is trying to prove the entire program is still emotionally built to handle greatness long term. And if they succeed, the dynasty conversation comes roaring back immediately. But if the pressure keeps building faster than the chemistry, then this story could become far more dramatic than anybody expected when ZaKiyah Johnson first made that announcement. And honestly, that's what makes this entire LSU situation feel almost impossible to predict right now. Because depending on how this season unfolds, ZaKiyah Johnson's announcement could either become the moment people point to as the beginning of LSU's next dynasty, or the moment everybody realizes the pressure around the program had already become too heavy to manage. That's how extreme the emotions around LSU have become. There's almost no neutral reaction anymore. People either believe Kim Mulkey is still building the most powerful brand in women's basketball, or they think the spotlight around the program is quietly starting to damage the foundation underneath it. And the scary thing? Both arguments sound believable right now, because talent has never been LSU's issue. Nobody questions that. Every season the roster still looks loaded. Every season elite recruits keep arriving. Every season the hype grows even louder. But lately, the emotional energy around the program feels unstable in a way championship teams usually avoid. And sports fans can feel that immediately. You notice it in interviews, in reactions after games, in the way conversations around LSU instantly become emotional online. It no longer feels like people are simply discussing basketball. It feels like they're defending identities, defending narratives, defending whether the program itself is still healthy internally. That's a huge shift from where LSU was during the championship run. Back then, the confidence looked natural, effortless, dangerous. Now the confidence sometimes feels forced. Like everybody understands the pressure, but nobody wants to admit how intense it's becoming behind the scenes. And maybe that's exactly why ZaKiyah Johnson's commitment created such a dramatic reaction from both fans and critics. Deep down, people understand she's stepping into a situation where expectations are no longer normal. At LSU, greatness is expected instantly now. Not eventually, instantly. And that can become overwhelming for young athletes faster than people realize. Especially when social media already treats players like professional celebrities before they fully adjusted to college basketball mentally. That environment changes everything. You're not just developing your game anymore. You're managing public image, managing pressure, managing fan expectations, managing criticism from millions of strangers online every single week. And unfortunately for LSU, the spotlight around the program multiplies all of that pressure even more. That's why some analysts have quietly started asking whether LSU has become too emotionally intense for its own good. Again, nobody says it directly because the backlash online would be insane. But you can hear the hesitation in conversations now. People keep using careful language. High pressure. Emotional environment. National attention. Those phrases sound harmless at first until you realize what they're actually implying underneath. That maybe the program's culture has become exhausting to live inside long term. And if that's true, ZaKiyah Johnson is entering one of the toughest mental environments in college sports at the exact moment expectations around LSU are becoming heavier than ever, which also explains why the pressure on Kim Mulkey keeps growing. Because legendary coaches are judged differently once the spotlight reaches this level. Winning one championship creates excitement. Building a dynasty creates pressure that never disappears. Suddenly every season becomes championship or failure territory, whether that's fair or not. And at LSU, fairness disappeared a long time ago. Now everything gets magnified. Every roster move becomes national news. Every emotional sideline moment becomes viral content. Every criticism turns into a war online within minutes. That constant emotional chaos eventually affects everybody connected to the program, whether they admit it publicly or not. And maybe that's why LSU feels so fascinating right now to the rest of the sports world. People are watching to see whether the program still controls the spotlight, or whether the spotlight has started controlling the program. There's a huge difference between those two realities. One creates dynasties. The other slowly destroys chemistry from the inside. And the difficult part is that both realities can look successful temporarily. You can still recruit elite talent, still win games, still dominate headlines, but internally, pressure can continue building underneath the surface until eventually something cracks emotionally. That's what makes the next season feel so important for LSU. Not just because of wins and losses, because this season may reveal whether the program is emotionally stable enough to handle the massive expectations surrounding it now. And honestly, ZaKiyah Johnson may become the center of that conversation whether she wants to or not. Because once fans attach symbolic meaning to a player, everything becomes amplified. Her performances, her body language, her confidence, her reactions to pressure. People will analyze all of it, searching for evidence that LSU is either still unstoppable or slowly unraveling underneath the weight of becoming too famous, too emotional, and too exhausting for anyone inside the program to fully control anymore. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing about all of this. LSU no longer feels like a basketball program people simply watch. It feels like a pressure experiment happening in real time. Because when you step back and really look at what's happening, the expectations surrounding this team are almost impossible for young athletes to carry comfortably anymore. Every season now comes with championship pressure before the first game even starts. Every player arrives with social media attention already attached to their name. Every emotional moment gets replayed across the internet within minutes. That environment can create stars, but it can also create emotional exhaustion faster than people realize. And some people around women's basketball are quietly starting to wonder if LSU is reaching that breaking point now. Not publicly, quietly. That's what makes this situation so interesting. Nobody fully says the controversial part out loud, but you can feel the tension underneath every conversation surrounding the program lately. Analysts choose careful words. Former players avoid saying too much directly. Fans defend the culture aggressively before criticism even fully arrives. That usually means people sense instability somewhere beneath the surface. And honestly, ZaKiyah Johnson walking into this environment may end up becoming one of the biggest tests of Kim Mulkey's entire LSU era. Because now it's not enough to recruit elite talent anymore. Everybody already knows LSU can do that. The real question is whether the program can still develop players successfully while carrying this level of emotional pressure, media attention, and non-stop national scrutiny around every single move. That's much harder. Especially in modern college sports where athletes are dealing with professional-level pressure years before entering professional leagues. And maybe that's why some WNBA voices have become more interested in college environments recently. Organizations are starting to pay attention not just to talent, but to how players handle emotional chaos before arriving professionally. They want athletes mentally prepared for pressure, criticism, and public attention. That conversation matters for LSU because the program now exists directly in the center of that spotlight constantly. Every LSU player enters national conversations immediately. That sounds exciting from the outside. But internally, that pressure can become exhausting over time, because eventually athletes stop feeling like they're simply playing basketball. They start feeling like they're carrying narratives, expectations, debates, entire fan communities emotionally attached to every performance. That weight changes people mentally. And the scary thing is, sometimes programs themselves don't realize how heavy the environment has become until frustration starts showing publicly. Maybe that's why so many reactions around LSU feel emotionally charged lately. Every conversation immediately turns intense online. Every criticism becomes personal. Every debate feels larger than the actual basketball itself. That's not normal championship pressure anymore. That's identity pressure. And identity pressure can completely change how teams function internally. Players become cautious. Coaches become defensive. Everybody starts feeling the emotional weight of maintaining an image that the outside world constantly analyzes every single day. That's exhausting for anyone to live inside long term, which is why the next chapter for LSU feels so important now. Because if ZaKiyah Johnson thrives immediately, the narrative shifts fast. Suddenly people start calling LSU unstoppable again. The dynasty conversations return. Kim Mulkey looks fully back in control. The criticism fades into background noise almost overnight. Winning always changes the story. But if the emotional pressure around the program keeps growing faster than the chemistry, then this situation could become much messier than fans expect. Because sports history is filled with talented teams that slowly collapsed underneath expectations they could not emotionally manage anymore. Not because the athletes lacked skill, because the environment around them became too intense to sustain. And honestly, LSU feels dangerously close to that line now. The program still has talent, still has attention, still has superstar potential. But emotionally, something feels different compared to the championship run. Back then, LSU looked loose, fearless, connected. Now the energy sometimes feels tense, careful, heavy. That difference matters more than statistics sometimes, because pressure changes body language before it changes results. And fans are beginning to notice those details more every season. That's why ZaKiyah Johnson's announcement created such a powerful reaction. Deep down, people understand she's arriving at a moment where LSU is no longer simply chasing championships. Now the program feels like it's fighting to protect its identity too. And protecting identity is much harder than winning games. Because once doubt enters a program emotionally, every setback feels larger. Every criticism spreads faster. Every awkward moment becomes evidence for whatever people already fear might be happening internally. That creates a cycle that's difficult to stop. Which means the future of LSU basketball may depend on something much bigger than recruiting rankings or highlight clips now. It may depend on whether the program can finally quiet the emotional chaos surrounding it long enough for players like ZaKiyah Johnson to simply breathe, develop, and play basketball without carrying the weight of an entire national narrative on their shoulders every single night. But now the real question is sitting right in front of LSU fans. Is ZaKiyah Johnson about to become the next superstar who brings LSU back to the top? Or is she walking into one of the most pressure-filled situations in college basketball right now? Because at this point, this story feels way bigger than one commitment. This feels like the moment that could decide where the entire LSU program goes next. And honestly, the sports world is watching every move. So I want to know what you think. Did ZaKiyah Johnson just make the smartest decision of her career? Or did she just step into a level of pressure nobody outside LSU fully understands yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is only getting louder from here. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit subscribe because the next LSU update might completely change the direction of this entire story overnight.